Welcome back to Water the State. This is episode 3. First of all, I'd just like to thank everybody for the support, everyone who's reached out and shared their experiences with me. And I'm really surprised by, honestly, how much backing it seems to already be getting. So I hope that we can build some traction with the coming videos over the next few days. Today's episode is going to be about mental health. I guess the reason I want to talk about this is to kind of introduce the long-term impacts of children who have been in care, and because of the experiences that obviously lead you to get into care. I want to go into, my own diagnosis and kind of explain how that came about, and hoping that that will kind of open up the discussion for anyone else who wants to talk about how their mental health was affected from the experiences, whether it's a child who's been a ward or a carer, because I know there's a lot of traumatic and emotional events that you guys go through as well. So to begin with, I'm diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very similar to PTSD. One of the main differences, the reason it can be diagnosed, is it's from repeated similar traumatic events. So childhood trauma, childhood abuse, things like that, are very common kind of C-PTSD diagnosis. The things I struggle with vary day to day. It can be anything from flashbacks to nightmares to hypervigilance to some form of paranoia. Sometimes it's just dark holes that I struggle to get out of. Very grayscale outlook of the world. And kind of constantly in a fight or flight response mode, depending on the situation. It's kind of made me realize that the things that happened to me as a child impacted me for way longer than just my childhood. It was probably around 15, 16 that I started to realize that I was different, that I was struggling with the world being darker to me. I was struggling to not react to my impulses, struggling to control my temper. I'd go to school and do odd things for reactions if they could get me to school. It was just around that time that I really started to understand that I'd been through some different things and that I hadn't really received the help needed and the support needed to push me past that point. So I didn't get diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder till around the age of 26. And it was very difficult for me to live my early adult years and kind of teenage years before that without knowing exactly what was going on in my brain. I really struggled through my adult years, job to job, jumping between different jobs, different friend groups, being a part of situations that I really shouldn't have been a part of, which I'm very blessed to even be here today in some points. But it made me understand that the importance of mental health is paramount, especially within the kind of setting that we're discussing when it comes to foster kids. If foster children don't receive that initial support and understanding and guidance, then it is very difficult for them to have a positive outcome. It's very difficult for you to push past the demons and the troubles and the issues that come with trauma and abuse and neglect if you don't know what's wrong with yourself. And I seen that in my own adult years. It was a constant struggle, and it still is to today. I've received a few messages of people saying I should be proud of where I am. It's much different when you're talking into a camera and from the perception that you may get that everything's going well, but it definitely isn't. I struggle day to day still. I struggle with my temper. I struggle to sometimes even go outdoors. There's certain areas that I won't go to. I have nightmares pretty much every night. I can be really, really happy and up, and then curled up in a ball laying on the lounge in tears. It's a roller coaster daily. It's something that I've learned to cope with because with work with my psychologist and different other support groups, I've under, began to understand that now my greatest kind of skill is my survival. The fact that I am where I am today is an achievement. The fact that I'm alive, the fact that I got here, the fact that even though there have been struggles along the way, that I've gotten through each of those struggles and survived it. But that took me all the way till 28, 29 to learn. I'm now 31. It was only once I found a really great psychologist by the name of Ross Backen that my life actually began to take a more positive track, and I started to understand the skills and the things that I had gained from the trauma and the experiences I'd been through. And I really thank Ross for that, because without him, I don't know if I'd be where I am today. I still have so much room for growth, and I'm still trying to become a better person every day, and that's a part of the process. But I think this journey could have been made much easier if from a young age people understood the impacts of what I'd been through and how that was going to affect me mentally and affect my brain and affect how I grew into a young male. I think if people had taken the time to understand me as an individual and not as a case number, then maybe the outlook could have been better. The outlook seems good now because I want it to be. But it wasn't like that at 18. At 18, I had no direction. I had no idea where I was going. I was always very angry. I was probably one of the first to jump into a fight, but also one of the first to run away from some. It was like a chaotic explosion in a young man's brain of not having an identity or understanding who he was, because I hadn't dealt with the struggles and the issues that were going on within myself. This all could have been avoided with proper support, proper documentation, and proper understanding of mental health. I feel like we could avoid children in the future suffering from similar diagnoses, worse things like suicide, if we could just focus on the fact that if you've been through these traumatic experiences, you're going to need help. There's no buts about it. There's no other way around it. There has to be prolonged support. It can't be support till 18. It can't be support till 21. The brain isn't even fully matured or finishing the phase of maturing till 25. So how could one expect the support to stop at 18 or 21 and still gain a positive outcome for one of these children? We need to look at things differently. We need to understand the implications of long-term outlooks. We need to take the time to think further into the future of these children and not just into what they need right now. What they need right now is important. It's one of the ways you can avoid future trauma. But you still need to deal with the trauma that's already happened. And to do that, we need to be able to look further than 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. We need to be able to look up until this child has finished maturing as a human. And then once that child has that opportunity to mature as a human with the support that they needed, you're more likely to gain a positive outcome. The child's more likely to be successful in life. Success can look like many things. My goal of opening up and telling my story with my diagnosis is so people understand that, one, what you see on camera might not be exactly who I am. I'm a very damaged individual who has been through some things. And my goal by putting myself out like this is purely to create discussion, because I have a belief that if we all sat down and talked to each other for a prolonged period of time, for a longer form discussion, that we'd actually start to understand each other more, and we'd understand that the solutions are right in front of us. with something like mental health with children in foster care, I think it's honestly just extending support. If you extend support and you offer the appropriate support and you give the child a way to gain independence in the future, then we're not going to continue to have the same mistakes over and over again, where you see children creating foster children, creating more foster children, creating more foster children, and a transgenerational dysfunction. We have an opportunity to talk about these things, and there might be some points that you guys have that could really help me. They could make my journey on getting better with my mental health easier for myself. So I'm hoping by having this discussion, by going both ways, that we can improve the situation, one for future foster children, but also for carers as well, because I feel like you guys see a lot of traumatic things, and I don't know if there's support there really to provide you with the necessary things to get you through the day. There's a lot of things that need to change in the system so that everyone who needs to be supported is supported, and that can provide more positive outcomes in the future. And I think with open discussion, we'll get there slowly. So I think that will do for today's episode, kind of opening up, giving you an idea into my mental health and the struggles that I've been through with it. But I am also hoping that it might give everyone an opportunity to open up more to me, and hopefully we can start this discussion a bit heavier and see what things we can do as a group to help make change for these foster kids. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching this video. There should be another one coming out tomorrow as well. If you can give it a like, a subscribe, I really appreciate it. Share it around. If you know of anyone who would like to have a discussion or you think I could benefit from talking to, please forward through my details to them. And I look forward to chatting next time. Cheers.